Hello and welcome back to A Better World. This is your host, Mitchell J. Rabin, and I'm very glad you're joining us again today. Today, we're going to be speaking with Ed Huling, the founder of Forterra, a really interesting company that is doing some significant, groundbreaking work, you could say, in regenerative farming and the use of certain methodologies that can take, well, any kind of land that has been deforested, that has been damaged through misuse over the course of decades or longer, through mining operations or what have you, and turn it around and make it green again. That's a lot of what this whole world needs is the greening of the planet. Again, I should say. So, Ed, great to have you on A Better World.
Yeah, nice to be here. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So, you're doing some, I use the phrase groundbreaking work because it literally is in
Mhm.
the space of regenerative agriculture, farming, reforestation, and the like. Um, maybe you could first outline a little bit of the issues we're facing planetarily, if you will. After all, you also have a background at the USDA as a researcher, doing some wonderful work in studying the nutrition density of food in different types of soil and establishing the fact that should have been obvious to everybody that the quality of soil will determine and even define the health of what comes out of it. Sort of like a healthy parent will determine the health of its offspring. Um,
Yeah,
we would think that that would be obvious to one and all, but apparently you've educated me that it wasn't
yeah.
obvious to your colleagues at the USDA. So if you would just kind of pick up first on an analysis, diagnosis, if you will, of the problem, and then what you've sought to do to remedy it.
hmm Yeah, I'm just thinking that it might be good to give a little bit background how I got to where I am now,
I'd love it.
and get the really the climate crisis is really our team's central focus right now, but that's not. It was actually a focus on food nutritional value that gave us the insights that allow us to have the solutions we have. And so I can just give you a little bit of background.
Oh, that'd be great.
About 25 years ago, I had been studying human nutrition for about 15 years and was becoming convinced that the nutritional value of our food was declining, and possibly it was due to soil depletion. Uh, had a number of interviews with scientists at the USDA and uh, really got quite a bit of obfuscation and uh, delegation and disinterest in what I was talking about. But finally, I met a senior scientist there, Dr. Stephen Britz from the Nutrient Data Lab, that was intrigued with what I was saying and offered to make available greenhouse facilities and pastures and lab facilities at the USDA and help me design testing to determine whether indeed soil had a significant impact on food nutritional value. So we did that, and although the official position of the USDA at that time was that it's genetics that determines food nutritional value, not soil, within a matter of really weeks or a month, early trials demonstrated that mineral dense organic soil produced much more nutrient dense food than the pastures out at the USDA that I compared these with. But we did trials over a period of about a year, and while plants were growing in the greenhouse, I was doing uh, literature searches at the National Agriculture Library, and finally found hundreds of research documents from the 1920s, 1930s comparing food grown in various types of soil, the nutrient density, and and that established that food that was grown 100 years ago was significantly more, mineral rich than food grown today. Um, so that kind of brought me full circle uh, in talking with my colleagues and saying, look, we've had a cost increase of healthcare from $200 billion per year in 1980 to 4 trillion today, while population has gone up just a fraction of that. So clearly we have a problem. The significant decline in the mineral content of food clearly is contributing to this. Obviously not the only factor, but it's a significant one. But when my colleagues were not interested in making the kind of fundamental changes to agriculture, then I set out to become an organic farmer and really learn how to commercialize what I had demonstrated on a preliminary basis in the lab. So over a period of 15 years, we finally, through hundreds and hundreds of experiments and lab tests, found the set of conditions of how to restore depleted soil with organic matter, with minerals, proper mineral balances, restoring thousands of species of microbes in order to get roughly the level of nutrient density of food that we had 100 years ago. About that time, my daughter had been studying about climate change and was becoming extremely concerned about the potential impact of climate change on the future and the future of her kids. And so I decided to investigate whether what we had discovered about soil and soil restoration could possibly contribute to the climate crisis. And so over the last 7 or 8 years, we have been shifting from producing food in a greenhouse, nutrient-dense food in a greenhouse, to how do we restore soil out in the field at a scale that can really make a difference. And so we've been able to increase crop productivity by between 400 and 600% through the same kind of techniques of soil restoration that we developed in the greenhouse. And that's been confirmed by Dr. Rubenstein at Princeton, Dr. Eric von Wetberg at University of Vermont, and more recently we've been working with Dr. Sarum at Penn State University, doing trials with our soil amendment at Penn State. So
Remarkable.
the basic issue is that that humans have been cutting down forests to access fertile soil for thousands of years, and now the rate of, as human population increases, at the same time that agriculture is depleting soil. So you with depleted soil, the production is lower. So forests continually need to be being cut down to offset the decline, as well as to meet the needs for an expanding population. So, but unfortunately, forests are the main cooling engine for the planet. It's the evaporation of water from trees that, and everyone knows intuitively, you go into a forest on a super hot day, it's cool. You go outside in the sun and it's
Hot.
super hot. So, we've now, according to the ICC, International Panel on Climate Change, 46% of the entire land area on Earth is now desert and arid wasteland.
46%.
Yeah, desert and arid wasteland. So basically most of the land surface of the planet,
Alarming, Ed.
yeah,
Alarming.
yeah, used to be forested. So this is really an alarming situation. And 80% of that deforestation is driven by the need for more food. Uh, so really, the only way we get out of this death spiral that we're on is we have to take depleted farmland, we have to restore it to a high level of productivity in order to meet the needs of people for food. We can't really expect people to starve in order that we not cut trees down. And that's, many countries on Earth are now recognizing the importance of stopping deforestation. But without a way of increasing food production, then the trade off is you either ask your people to starve or you cut your forest down. So that's, I think, what
It's an
is
impossible
significant.
proposition.
Yeah, it really is. So fortunately, there is a solution. We've demonstrated in
Yes.
10 or 15 different states, many different soil types, degraded mine lands, degraded land in Texas, Kentucky, New Jersey, Delaware, many different states that we've demonstrated now that we can
Mhm.
take highly degraded farmland and convert it to highly productive food production.
And how
So
long does it take for that process to occur? Of course, it will change context to context, geographical region to another, but overall, what is the
um,
range of
we
result?
we get these results within a matter of months. We apply the soil amendment, and really the first growing season, we get this increase of typically 400 to 500% increase in crop productivity within one growing season.
My word.
And we also have found that when all these components of naturally healthy soil are restored, we also are finding that we get at least a 10-time increase in soil carbon sequestration, so that the uh, the mycorrhizal fungi in soil combined with the root exudates from plant roots um, take that carbon that's produced through photosynthesis and sequester it in soil, so that we increase the carbon content of soil, which is good because it takes it out of the atmosphere where it's
Sure.
not helpful and puts it into the soil where it's available for storing rainwater, for storing minerals so that they're available for plants, and helping the soil structure so that the carbon sequestration.
Yes.
Um,
Going
we
back for a moment to what started you on this journey, which was taking a look at food and the relationship of healthy food to healthy soil. Uh, have you looked at the benefits in the nutrient density of food as a result of the implementation of the soil amendment?
Yeah, that really was the first phase of this project. It took 15 years, but we had we were growing microgreens at that point and had them tested by a USDA food testing lab,
Oh,
and we were able uh, to to put on our label that our product was supplying 24 different vitamins and minerals in meaningful quantities. To my knowledge, more than any other food product on the market.
beating
12,
FDA standards.
yeah. So it's 12 vitamins and 12 minerals, different percentages of the minimum daily requirements, but significant enough that we were able to publish it on our package.
Yeah, that is fantastic. So you could say that your original thesis ultimately got proven out.
It did, yeah. It turns out soil is far more complicated. I didn't start out as a soil scientist. I was more focused on human nutrition, but of course, all of life is built with the same elements, so
Sure.
it wasn't in the end that different. But there's dozens of essential minerals, and they have to be present in proper quantities in order to get optimal uptake for plants and optimal productivity for crop production. So it's not like there was a, a, a book I could read to say how to do all this. So
Exactly. Could you talk a bit about the economic benefit to this? Because if you are increasing yield, crop yield by some 400 to 600% in the same soil, and the uh, nutrient density you're discussing, it changes what we say is everything. Because human health increases, that means human cognition increases. That means fewer people going to hospitals and doctors changes. Personal human productivity increases, and the enjoyment of food, of course, also increases, and the farmer gets to benefit. So, could you paint a picture of the economic benefit and boon, if you will, that occurs
yeah,
when people utilize your particular methodology?
yeah. The really the good news in all this is that um, this doesn't require you know philanthropic donations or this uh, when soil productivity is improved by 4 or 5 or 600%, that means 4 or 5 or 600% more revenue for the farmer. So the you know an investment in fertility that can be paid off in a matter of months is completely justified by the increase in revenue for the farmer.
Right.
As you say, there are downstream benefits in human health. Um, it's a little bit harder to quantify financially what is a healthy person worth,
Of course.
um, but certainly it's what I've
It's
been
sort of
dedicated
obvious,
to.
though, that life, the quality of life, let alone the quantity,
Yeah,
is greatly increased.
yeah, and almost one of every $5 spent in the United States is spent on sick people. That's that's and the irony is that that's credited with boosting the uh, our economy. So it's looked at like this is good for the economy. So it's just really twisted.
Yeah,
Sick people are good for the economy, but bad for human
exactly.
life.
Exactly.
So
Sick people and war are great for the economy. I think
yeah,
we need a new kind of economy,
yeah,
a different
um,
basis, if you will. And this also, I did not mention, and maybe you could say a word about it. On one hand, you've got the basic human health, human nutrition benefit. You've got the farmer economic benefit, and then there's the global warming slash really benefit to global cooling and the
yeah,
reproductivity of land that was otherwise, infertile. We're also talking about, so that's a global warming dividend, if you will, also. And we're also talking about large swaths of the world that are in famine or near it, or at least food insecure.
hmm
So maybe you could speak a bit about how that changes as well.
yeah. For me, the climate crisis transcended the nutrition crisis. As important as nutrition is, our focus has been, you know, restoring soil to, uh, to increase food production, to slow or stop deforestation. Now, um, so it's not that we don't care about nutrition. Actually, all the minerals are still present. The food is just as nutrient dense as it ever was. It's just that our strategy is to grow the company in order to impact as many acres as we can so that we can really begin to move the needle on food production. Uh, Meat consumption per capita globally doubled over the past 50 years, and it's projected to double again. And sorry, and so meat, the drive for more meat has really been at the center of the uh, impact on deforestation, for more land for grazing, more land
Yes.
for growing corn and soybeans to feed the animals. So,
The
so
destruction of the Amazon.
yeah. So our our focus is uh, primarily at this point on boosting meat production per acre because people crave more protein, more nutrients, and
Animal protein. Yeah.
yeah, animal protein is higher vitamins, higher minerals, higher protein, and humans just crave a more nutritious diet. So we're not going to, you know, we're not going to get people just to stop eating meat. So we need to get really good at producing meat efficiently and doing it in a way that's beneficial to the environment and not destructive the way industrial meat production is
Which is
highly destructive.
highly destructive. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So
Yeah, please go ahead.
um, well, that's fine. Go ahead.
Okay. No, I just wanted to ask you because in our chatting the other day, Ed, uh you had mentioned that there are some 10,000 other soil amendment products out there. And then there's the entire enterprise of biochar, which is known quite well these days in many different pockets of our society. And could you speak about that? Because what we're talking about is a remarkable uptick in productivity of land that you're discussing here, 400 to 600% of nutrient density. I see all of this on equal footing. I don't see it myself as distinct, where we're talking about improving the cooling character of forests and the like, and cooling the planet and human nutrition. I mean, for me, I look at things with the same paintbrush, if you will. Both
Hmm.
are vitally important to turning our planet around and our human species around, if you will. But so there are many ways of going about that. What distinguishes what you're doing, to whatever extent you can share that, um, from the other amendments that are out there? One has to ask, as soon as you say what you're saying, what the heck is inside your soil amendment?
Yeah. Well, conceptually, in retrospect, it's fairly simple. Is we restore everything needed for healthy soil. That's the central difference is there are many different soil amendments on the market, and they all address certain aspects of what's missing. But what we have done is come up with a comprehensive amendment that really restores everything. You need dozens of essential minerals. They need to be present in the proper balance because, if there's, you know, way too much zinc, then the plant takes up zinc instead of something else, and then metabolically it's not efficient for the plant. So it's necessary to restore all of the essential elements and to restore them in the proper balance. And similarly, nature and plants depend on thousands of species of microbes um,
Yes.
to work most productively. Each one has their own niche and, provides a certain antioxidant or a certain vitamin or,
Mm-hmm.
helps them, you know, protect against uh, protect against parasites or help them gather nutrients. Some put out strong acids that help uh, dissolve the minerals in rock to make that available. Just a countless array of services that these microbes perform for optimal plant production. And these microbes have largely been wiped out by plowing, by chemicals, by excessive production over a period of, hundreds or thousands of years. And so, anyway, the short answer is that we restore everything that is necessary for highly productive soil.
It's a holistic approach, is what I really hear.
Yeah, yeah,
When we were speaking recently about biochar, you said that typically, of three fundamental important elements, biochar provides typically one. So that means
yeah,
it's one third of three thirds of a solution. So it is a partial solution.
yeah.
It's just not, you need the whole solution. Is that a correct comment?
Right, right. Over the same hundreds, thousands of years, um, the organic matter, the carbon in soil, has been steadily oxidized. So, what used to be maybe 10% of soil as organic matter, now in many areas it's only 1 or 2%. So, the point of biochar and other forms of carbon is to begin to restore the carbon that's been lost, because carbon is crucial for storing water, for storing minerals, and so that's the and it's modeled again against the uh, what was done in the Amazon with the terra preta soils, burying charcoal and
Mm-hmm.
restoring carbon. So
Tell us a
that's
little
the
bit
idea.
about that, if you would.
Yeah. Well, of course, none of us were there when they did this. Who
Right.
knows? 1,000 years ago, 1,500
Yeah.
years ago, and the carbon is still in the areas where indigenous people buried this charcoal. The soils are more productive. They store more water, store more minerals. They're more productive, and so that is what is being emulated with the production of biochar. Now, uh, the nature actually, when nature is restored properly, we are restoring over 10 tons of carbon per acre per year in our we basically help create the conditions where the plants themselves, uh, the plants through photosynthesis are taking carbon dioxide out of the air
Mm-hmm.
and producing root exudates to put carbon into the soil. So when
Mm-hmm.
agriculture is done properly, nature's producing its own carbon in soil. So that's
Yes.
we provide. I call it a kickstart amount of organic matter with our soil amendment to get things started, but mostly our system produces far more carbon in soil naturally than we're adding.
Well, that's interesting because that is also respecting nature's own ways, the way the ecosystem balances herself, if you will.
Yeah,
And because of the excessive pollution by pesticides, insecticides, herbicides, chemicals for, at this point, many, many decades, it's almost like some of the natural memory to restore has been lost. It hasn't really been lost, but the results are, I mean, I'm going to put it this way, incredibly challenging weather pattern changes and
mm-hmm.
other things that are happening naturally to nature, for nature to remedy the
Mm-hmm.
sick situation in which it finds itself. So to kickstart a process, and let nature take over, if you will, is sort of the best thing. It's like pushing a child on a bicycle and letting him or her ride by him or
Yeah,
herself, you know.
yeah, yeah. I mean, one of the things that we found is that once we restore all these elements, that our food crops are more resilient. They're more resilient to drought and they're more resilient to heat. Uh, we One of our farmer partners went through a severe 2 month drought where only 3/16 of an inch from around uh, June 1st to the end of July, and but during that period, we produced 9,000 pounds per acre of dry matter. 6 foot tall forage for animals that was green and lush, and the farmer, we had about 40 acres, and the rest of the 800 acres surrounding our plot was almost completely destroyed crop. Corn that was corn ears that were 3 inches long, and just almost total crop loss on the rest of the farm without all these nutrients and microbes. And
Present, yeah.
yeah, so in central New Jersey it was an extreme drought and almost total crop failure in the whole region. But it it our forage crop it looked like it was raining every day. And then we did a project in South Texas uh, where after applying our amendment, uh, the there was it was both on forage as well as vegetable production. Uh, Vegetables were being harvested every day during a period where there were 10 straight days of 115-degree heat index, and yet vegetables were being harvested every day. So it's just nature is
Remarkable.
very resilient when it's all the components are allowed to do
Are
their job.
present, exactly. Beautifully
Yeah.
put. I'd like to have a moment of big picture thinking because, well, you and I tend to think big picture when we look at the issue of the global warming crisis, the
Mhm.
climate crisis. I don't like using the phrase climate change because I tell people all the time that if the climate stopped changing, we'd really be in trouble. And what we've done is create a crisis, and the crisis is warming because the water cycles are not able to function because we've gotten in the way, and everything is drying up, as you made the
Mhm.
point
Yeah.
in many ways already. If your amendment were to be established and instituted worldwide, we're just having fun for a moment before it becomes, God willing, real.
Yeah.
And the ocean, by the way, gets restored as well. Another
Hmm.
incredibly important place to clean up dead zones and death in the water, if you will. When you do both, but let's just talk about land based for the moment. What would you foresee as the turnaround of what so many people fear is not reversible?
Yeah. The you know the way I think of it is like humans are r- rushing toward a cliff, and as more and more trees get cut down and the earth heats up more and more, temperature extremes have a big impact on crop production. They
Sure.
evaporate water from the soil, uh, particularly when soils are not restored properly. The crops are not resilient, so you have crop failure. Is that um, we we need to stop the deforestation. We need to begin to restore forests. We need to restore soil. Um, it's just a question: can humans react quickly enough and decisively enough before temperature is so extreme, and
Yes.
you may replant a forest, but it's just too hot and dry to ever have it go to work again. So
Yeah.
obviously, we are trying to do our part uh, to reverse this picture,
But can
but
you
that
see a reversal occur if, let's just say, this amendment and the efforts behind it were to be deployed en masse globally, uh,
Yeah,
do you
yeah,
see a reversal in the future if that were to happen?
yeah. It's absolutely possible. The greatest leverage will be to uh, to restore soil near coastal areas uh, where trees and animal production, uh, you know, animal pastures can be planted together so that you can have evaporation from trees and trees shading pastures to some extent so that
Mm-hmm.
you get evaporation and cooling from the trees and then restore the natural cycle. uh, what happens in nature, what makes a rainforest is that the evaporation from trees, when you have condensation up in the atmosphere, it creates a negative pressure that draws humidity off the ocean. And that's the way most rainfall on land comes from forests attracting humid air off the ocean onto land. So without trees, you have deserts, and the whole planet dries out. So what's happened around the world is more and more of the forests near oceans are being cut down. People want to
Mm-hmm.
go to the beach and have homes near the ocean. So you cut these forests down, you break this cycle of humid air flowing onto land, and uh, and then as more and more patches of forests, like in the Amazon, are cut down, you just hear of more and more drying out of the Amazon. But that's already happened in Australia, Western United States, and
Yes.
many areas of the world have already dried out because forests have been cut down, and particularly forests have been cut down near the ocean. So that's where
Interesting.
our main focus will be,
Wow.
is finding opportunities where we can restore soil, restore this kind of integrated forest pasture production system
And
to
in
restore the
particular
rain.
by the ocean.
Yeah,
I didn't really think that through. That's a really good point.
yeah.
That if it were there, you're getting more bang for your buck, so to speak,
Well,
because of that
you're
interchange
yeah,
between the
you're
ocean
getting
humidity coming
Yeah,
to
you're
land.
getting more food production, you're getting more cooling from evaporation, but you're also getting the restoration of rainfall because more and more we're hearing, desertification is basically the loss of trees, the loss of the evaporation from trees, and the loss of rain. And
That's right.
without rain, basically you don't have life in this.
That's right. The
uh,
loss of native habitat. You
yeah,
know, for the longest time, I'm the head of an NGO at the UN called the Institute of Global Education. And when they asked me to be the head of it, I said, if we focus on environmental education, I'm on. But that is the focus. And
hmm,
we've always looked at the subjects of global poverty, global famine, and war. And in other words, creating global peace. And I said, all these three things can be solved through regenerative farming and agriculture.
yeah,
Why? It's pretty obvious. If you give the farmer in India, in Africa, in Southeast Asia, in South America, the tools to regenerate more produce in the same acreage, they're going to have more food for their own family. That's global famine and food insecurity. They will have more to sell at the marketplace. That takes care of the issue of global poverty and peace. Well, yeah, they have something they want to preserve, conserve, and respect, which is their community, which is now thriving. You can be sure they want peace, and
yeah.
they'll do what takes to be peaceful. Anyway, it's
Yeah,
right
no,
along the
I
line
agree.
of what you were
So
saying.
much war and terrorism are rooted in the lack of resources.
Exactly.
When there's competition for resources, then you've got the basis for that kind of wars and problems. So yeah.
Exactly. Well, this has been great, Ed. Is there any last thoughts that you have that you want to share with our audience that you feel we should collectively know?
I mean, I would just encourage people to, you know, what people eat affects the environment and it affects their health. So uh, I would just encourage the listeners to find local farmers that are, uh, producing organic and grass-fed uh, meat and eggs and dairy products because uh, that's the industrial meat is both very harmful to health and it's harmful to the environment. Uh, Organic produce is grown without toxic chemicals, so everybody can make some contribution to themselves and to the planet.
That's beautiful. Well, Ed, thank you so much for your great work. I really deeply appreciate it. I've had the honor of knowing you for a few years now, and I've been watching Solar Carbon Partners mature into Forterra and really making a footprint, if you will, no pun
Yeah,
intended,
yeah,
on our planet. And a better world, my organization is
yeah,
so grateful because
yeah,
these are the values, this is the perspective, the purview that we so greatly embrace. So
yeah.
it's really a pleasure and an honor to have you on the show, as well as everybody. Our Earth Day event coming up in April, April 21st. Ed will also be one of our speakers. So don't miss that either.
Well, thank you so much for having me, and good luck with all your projects too.
Thanks so much.
Yeah,
Appreciate it.
yeah.
This is Mitchell
Bye bye.
J. Rabin for A Better World. Thanks so much for joining us. And I look forward to seeing you all next week.